Welcome back guys, today I'm going to show you how to cook an authentic Aussie HSP. Okay, first I'm going to show you how to make tom, a traditional Middle Eastern garlic sauce. First we're going to need what we refer to in Australia as a metric shit ton of garlic. I have 2 bulbs here, or roughly 30 cloves, which I'm going to peel and then roughly chop with my knife. It's important to use fresh garlic here as the jar stuff just won't cut it. Then we're going to add this all to our blending jar, along with a teaspoon each of lemon juice and white wine vinegar, followed by a generous pinch of salt. Then I'm going to proceed to use Andrew Babich-Ray's favourite technique of using an immersion blender to make a fine paste in the jar. Once we've got a nice smooth paste, we're going to add about a tablespoon of our oil and then start blending to form our emulsion. Once our initial emulsification has come together, we can start adding more oil and blending to build up our sauce. Almost counterintuitively, as we add more oil, the sauce is going to begin to thicken. Plenty of people have already covered the science of emulsifications. If that's something you want to learn more about, go check out Adam Ragusa. Okay, our tom is coming together really nicely here. Add a bit more oil and we're just going to continue blending this, adding a bit more oil as we go, as it thickens up and then reaches the consistency that we want. Okay, so we're nearly through our oil here, and I'm getting impatient, so I'm going to go ahead and add way more oil than I should. What could possibly go wrong? Just like Prometheus who flew too close to the sun, I get to watch my emulsification literally fall apart before my eyes, leaving me to ponder my life choices. In an act of desperation, I've chopped another 6 garlic cloves, and I'm going to add these in a futile attempt to save this. Then, in an even more desperate act, I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of sour cream in the hopes that this might somehow thicken up the sauce and save it. After about 5 more minutes of blending off camera, I decided the best course of action is to pour this all out into a separate container and then start with new garlic in the jar and try and make a fresh emulsification. When your emulsifications break, you can sometimes save them by making a fresh new emulsification and then slowly adding your broken mix back into the new one. So I began to stream in small amounts of oil as I blended the new emulsification, hoping that eventually it would start to come together. As time went on, this became evident that it wasn't going to happen. No matter what I did, I just could not get this new batch to emulsify. In a final act of desperation, I decided to start pouring my broken mix into my not yet emulsification to see if it maybe would work anyway. Spoiler, it did not. And after about 5 more minutes of trying to save this, I decided it's time to move on. After the crushing defeat of what was initially a nice, thick, garlicky tom, I decided to move on to our chicken. I'm using 3 bone-in, skin-on chicken thighs here. I definitely wouldn't recommend using chicken breast for this recipe, as it tends to get too dry. After removing all the chicken and putting the bones aside for stock, in a bowl we're going to add a pinch of salt, coriander, garlic powder, making sure to spill a good amount of it on the table, hot paprika, and some Moroccan spice that I have in my cupboard, which adds some really nice flavours. Then we're going to add about a tablespoon of lemon juice, and because why not, I decided to add about a tablespoon of the failed tom. Then we're going to mix our chicken around, make sure all those flavours are incorporated and every piece is thoroughly coated. Then we're going to cover and marinate in our fridge for about an hour. Then, maybe because I'm a masochist, I decided to try the tom once more. I blended the top layer of separated oil first, and hey, what do you know, it actually started to come together. So I started to stream in a little bit of water as I blended it more and more, and it has definitely formed an emulsification. It's not as thick as what I wanted, but it is a nice emulsified garlicky sauce, and for a HSP, this is actually a pretty good consistency. Alright, we're going to start off with a bit of olive oil in the pan. Want this to be probably medium high. You don't need it to be burning hot, but you want it to be pretty hot. We want to sear off this chicken a bit and get a little bit crunchy, a little bit charred. Oh yeah, that's good. So I'm going to lay these kind of skin side down. Get them crisped up a bit. Alright, so when we put these in, we want to leave them for a few minutes. You'll be tempted to turn them and stir them around, but we want a nice crust to form. So the longer you can leave it without burning, the better. We'll give it a little bit of a turn like this, kind of distribute the oil. Well, now that that's taken care of, as I was saying, let's turn the oil around in the pan a bit and kind of get that nice and distributed. We don't want to turn this too much because it'll start to steam. We want it to sear, so try not to move it too much in the first couple of minutes. Just let it sit there, let it do its job, trust me, it'll get nice and crispy. Alright, this has been going for a few minutes, let's see how it's doing. Yeah, see that? Just effortlessly comes away from the pan, even though it's stainless steel. It's because we didn't touch it and we let a crust form, and that's what you're after. That's what's going to let you be able to cook in a stainless without it sticking too much. Same thing works in a cast iron too, but I think it works for a stainless even more. So we'll start turning these bits over now. So these are cooking up pretty nice. We don't want to overcook it. It's obviously, we're using skin-on chicken thighs, so it's dark meat, so it's definitely not going to get dry like a chicken breast would. But at the same time, we want it to be nice and tender and juicy as well. We want all of those nice juices to come out onto the fries. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend using a chicken breast for this type of recipe. Thighs are the way to go. Okay, so this is pretty good now. As you can see, it's crisped up pretty nice. There's a bit of fond in the bottom. Normally I would deglaze and use this, but for this type of dish, we don't really need it. Alright, this is nearly cooked. I reckon maybe just another minute or so, and we should be good to go. So this is just about done. I am going to scrape a bit of the fond out of the bottom here. Just kind of coat it all around. Some good stuff in there, so you don't want to waste it. Alright, so we're good here. I'm going to take this out and put it on the board. Let it cool down a bit. We want to let it cool down a bit before we chop it up. It'll retain its moisture better that way. Doesn't matter what meat it is. Generally, you want to rest it after cooking. That goes for pork, that goes for steak, but that goes for chicken too. Alright, so now we're going to get our oil on. We're going to deep fry our fries. So we want to be checking the temperature of our oil as it's heating up. I've got a digital thermometer here. It's important you don't use a meat thermometer. They won't go hot enough to register the oil. You could damage it. You need to get a thermometer that has a full temperature range. Alright, our oil is just about up to temp, so it's time for our fries. Now, you can make your own at home. Sometimes I do. Look, I've been buying these from my local restaurant supply wholesaler. Shout out to VNC Foods. Buying it store-bought, obviously they're all uniform, they're kind of pre-prepared. It is a lot easier. Making your own at home can be fun and they're really tasty, But if you're just looking for a quick, good meal, you can't go wrong with store-bought. Especially if you get it from a local wholesaler, always a lot better. I always like to try it out with just one to start. Alright. Don't know if you can hear that, but it is frying a bit. I do start them a little bit colder, and then we can kind of bring the temp up as we go. So I'm going to start adding handfuls here, making sure that we don't get ourselves with the oil. Try and get your hand as close to the oil as you can without kind of touching it, and kind of gently drop them in. So you can get a bit more in here, I reckon. That looks like a good amount to me. So we want to kind of turn them, get them zhuzhed around a bit so they don't stick together. The oil temp is going to drop a lot as you drop your fries in, obviously, because they're coming out of the freezer. So make sure to turn your hot plate or whatever you're cooking on up a little bit to compensate. I'm going to do just a little bit more here. I've got a little bit more room in the corner there. Alright, yep, that looks pretty good to me. So with French fries, you don't really mind if they kind of cook a little bit slower. There's like your twice and even triple cook technique. I like to do that sometimes as well. I find that with this type of fry, you don't really need to bother too much. I like them kind of somewhere between a fast food fry and a fish shop fry. So I want them to be a little bit more cooked and crispy than this. This is kind of looking like Macca's fries at the moment, but we want it to be a bit more than that. Alright, I reckon these are pretty good, so let's get them out onto a sheet tray with some paper towel just to absorb a bit of that extra oil. Alright, our chicken is rested and it's been staying in the oven nice and hot. So now let's chop it up. I want fairly big chunks for this. Don't want it to be too small. Definitely don't want to like dice it up tiny. A real HSP would come from kind of kebab meat, which is like a big kind of emulsified, shaved kind of log rotating on a spit. It's kind of really hard to define the texture. It's really, really good, but kind of hard to do at home unless you've got some specialty gear. So the next best thing is just to use some chicken thighs and kind of rough chop it, kind of semi-shred. You wouldn't want giant chunks, but you don't want it to be too small either. Like I would say, you know, a bit like that. It's kind of perfect. Alright, now coming to the best part. Get your fries in your plate. Use your hand because I don't care, it doesn't matter. Alright, your meat goes straight on top. We're not going for anything too fancy here. It's not meant to be Michelin-starred food. It's meant to be bloody good on a night out, and you've hit the piss too hard. Now, what makes it a true HSP is what we call the Holy Trinity. So we got chili sauce, we've got garlic sauce, and then we've got barbecue sauce. So that's the most important, apart from your meat, part of the HSP. So thankfully, as you saw, we were able to save our tune. Actually turned out pretty good in the end. Normally it's meant to be a little bit thicker than this, but you know what, for a HSP this is pretty damn good actually. The type of garlic sauce that you would get in a kebab shop normally isn't like a traditional sort of tune like we were going for here. It's more of just kind of this type of consistency garlic sauce. Actually, I don't really know what they're using over there. Maybe it's just kind of a bit of a running a tune. But the point is, tune is better. This is the good shit, and you need a lot of it. Ah, perfect. Yeah, that's perfect amount. Alright, so next thing we're going in with an Aussie-style barbecue sauce. Nothing fancy here. It's not a Sweet Baby Ray's or anything like that. Nothing kind of artisanal, nothing hipster. Just basically sugar and molasses. Alright. And the most important part, arguably, I would say the tumis, but chili sauce too. Now I'm using a green sriracha here. You don't need to use a sriracha. Some technically probably not traditional. They would just kind of use a generic supermarket chili sauce. But you know what, I like sriracha. I'm gonna go and devour this bad boy, but thanks so much for watching. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, do all that fun stuff. I do have a Patreon in the description and the links. Join if you want, it'll help out. The more people I can get to help out, the better stuff I can cook, so it's gonna be a win. And as always, I've been Tammy, you've been awesome, and I will see you next time. Bye!